One decision I made when I came to the country in 2022 changed the whole direction in which I took my career progression and care experience build up. And in the end, it has shaped the way I'm transitioning and growing in the sector, in the industry. And I'll share with you that strategy later on in this video. So guys, without wasting much time, today we want to talk about how one can build care experience across board, across different care settings altogether, because the care industry is a very broad industry in which I think it will be a very good thing if you are a migrant and you're wanting to grow, you're wanting exposure and experience, that you at least get to experience more than just one care sector. And I'll be sharing with you also my journey and how I managed to do it. Partly it's because a lot of people do ask me that, how did you manage to juggle that? Because besides me working full-time and being on sponsorship, I'm also a mom. I'm also a wife. So juggling all of that and also being cognizant of the fact that I also have career ambition and pursuing career progression and growth is another thing. And on top of that, I'm pursuing education. I'm pursuing upskilling. So it's very important that we share these experiences, because a lot of people do really have the ambition, do really have it in them. They want to do this so badly. However, they don't know how to do it. So I'm going to be sharing all of that in this video. So let's get right into it. After 2-3 years, a lot of migrants start feeling stuck in a career, start feeling stuck in a specific sector of the industry. And some of them have been reaching out to me because I do have a platform where I'm doing coaching, guidance, one-to-one support for caregivers who are wanting career progression, who are wanting upskilling, who are wanting also to break into the NHS. And this is based on my experiences of having done that as well. So you are welcome to go to my Facebook page. It's Florence Msekio on Facebook. If you subscribe on there, you get access to me one-to-one support where we are talking, and I'll be sharing in depth my experiences and also reviewing your support statement and your CV. I do all of that for my subscribers there. So if you haven't done so and you're really wanting to be proactive about your growth, head over there. So just within 4 years that I've been in the country, I've managed to work in domiciliary care. I've managed to work in care homes. I've worked in specialist support work. I've worked on the bank with the NHS, and I've also worked on the ward as a healthcare support worker for the NHS. And people will be wondering, how did you manage to do that in 4 years? It's not because I was lucky. It's because I have been intentional from day one. I was very intentional about my career progression, about wanting to build and progress in the care industry. Some people would go like, but how would you juggle that? We're going to go right into it in this video. Strategy is one of the things that I so much believe in. And also, apart from that, I believe there will be a way. And I found ways from day one. I would find ways and means of doing it. And it has worked without even a day that it compromised my sponsorship, because a lot of people do worry about sponsorship, visa rules, violations. I'm very cognizant of all of those things, and I've been very cognizant of those things as I was working and juggling all of these things. But I knew this would be very handy if I'm wanting to progress further, if I'm wanting to upskill. I needed a broader experience. I needed the exposure into systems, into the industry, and also to experience different care settings, having a broader experience portfolio. I knew I would leverage on that, and I'm beginning to see the results 4 years into the journey. It's been a worth investment of time, investment of intention, investment of research, and more. I started off in domiciliary, and it gave me the foundation that I needed, partly because it gave me the job security because I was being sponsored by the care company that brought me from Zimbabwe. Apart from that, the fact that you're working independently, it taught me a lot of independent working, autonomous decision making, escalation, communicating independently without too much interference. Also, it gave me an exposure to other experiences that you gain through dealing with families, dealing with GPs, district nurses, and then reporting all of that to management. It sort of gave you the on-the-floor experience and also a bit of middle management, because you're running your own shift, you're running your own rota, you are in charge of everything that goes on in that shift. And also the way they drew down in me, the culture of documenting and how to do notes. In domiciliary, you have to be explicit. It has to be so detailed. Also, again, when it comes to dealing with medication, because you're administering, you're prompting, you've got a whole portfolio that you're managing. And I'm glad I started off that way. However, there's something that I realized. For me, I don't know, for some people it's okay, but for me, I felt if I stayed in that industry too long, that would mean I would only be an expert in just one specific thing. I would only know that side of care, but I wanted more. I knew what I wanted. Obviously, from snippets of interactions with district nurses, you would become curious of what is it that happens with them. When sometimes someone is escalated to hospital, you're kind of curious what really goes on in there. So that made me think long and hard. However, I didn't want again to leave too soon because I knew it was that training ground for me. It was that environment that gave me enough room to exercise and implement all the things that I was learning. But I knew I had to do something about gaining experience and building my reference portfolio. Also, whilst I was doing domiciliary, I knew that if I were in the future to then go for other industries or other sectors in care, or if I were to progress further, experience would count. And also, I needed references. It was a no-brainer to say 5 years later, for me at least, 5 years later, I'm still relying on overseas experience and overseas references. I knew I needed to build a UK experience portfolio if I was going to progress further. So I knew that, fine, I'm in domiciliary, but I had to do something about it. And this is where a lot of carers probably need to think long and hard if they are to want to break into other sectors of care. To say it's good to pick overtime, it's nice to pick overtime, especially when you pick overtime in the same sector, in the same team that you are in the same industry that you are in, because it's like your shift, like the back of your hand. However, for me, I decided to do things differently. And this is when I joined an agency. Partly it was because I wanted to experience other care settings without leaving the safety net that I had with the domiciliary company that was sponsoring me. I still wanted more. I still wanted to build that stability with them, whilst on the side pursuing other things. So I decided I wasn't going to pick overtime in the domiciliary team that I was in, but I would do it with the agency. I didn't just pick any agency because my next stop was going to be care homes. I wanted to understand what happens in care homes. Partly is because we were working in domiciliary and we would at some point really have to have those conversations with the people that we looked after about who you want long-term to still be staying at home, or you're looking into going into residential or independently owned, into a care home, things like that, supported living, things like that. So I became curious about all of that. I became very intentional about the kind of agency that I was going to join. So, which is why I picked an agency that would signpost me to different care homes. I didn't just want to be in one care home all the time. So I had the privilege of working at least in 3 different care homes, which gave me a wealth of experience. When I look back at all of that, it really built me up. Also, by going into care homes, I learned a lot. I gained a lot of experience about working in teams, because you would look after residents in one place and so many residents, depending on the floor that you would be assigned, different experience altogether. And when I reflect, I know that's where I had to be. It was in these care homes that I first encountered medication rounds. Of course, when we were in domiciliary, we would administer impromptu medication, but dealing with medication for a lot of people was a whole different ballgame. And when I look at that now, started working out for me when I went into the NHS, I thank that experience, that exposure I had when I worked in care homes. Also, part and parcel of the exposure that I got when I worked in these care homes was the fact that I started understanding career progression in care. Because as migrants, when you knew, sometimes if you're not surrounded by exposure, because I know I talk a lot about how keeping within the same community or within your own people sometimes can limit you. We didn't have much exposure as to what's going to happen with career progression. When we were in domiciliary, you would just be thinking, what's next? There was no clear career progression pathway really. But when I started going to these care homes, I would now see that actually you can progress from being a carer to become a senior, from being a senior, that pathway where you would become a deputy manager, become a registered manager. There was a lot of which I experienced by working in that structure. So I can never really regret the decision that I make. Obviously, some of you now are wondering what sort of strategy, how was I balancing it? Because again, I didn't want to leave my job. So my strategy was keep the job that I have, work my 4 hours because it's part and parcel of my visa requirements that I have to fulfill the obligated hours with my sponsor. However, I was very intentional. I would not pick overtime in that, in my team, unless it was to support my team, not for money. But for me, the goal wasn't for money in my first year, second year. The goal was to experience the industry, build experience, and leverage on growth, career progression, leveling up, and upscaling. So I was harnessing skills more than I needed the money. Of course, it would come complementary with money. Also, I had to vary the shifts that I picked because it was my first time really working night shifts when I was with that agency and I would be signposted to these companies. So it worked so well. And when I then transitioned into the NHS, which I will explain just shortly, it sort of helped because I'd worked all shifts. I had been exposed to working a full 12-hour shift. Also, I had all that experience from my domiciliary days. It was, I think, in my second year that I started wanting to become adventurous again and I explored support work. Now, this is a different ballgame altogether. Of course, there is different kinds of support work that you can go into, from learning disability, mental health, autism, complex care needs, complex support system, specialist support system. There is a lot that you can explore in this industry. But like I said, I've always been very intentional about career progression and things like that. So I decided I was going to go into it. But I was now starting to look into stability. Again, that time I had not left my domiciliary care job because that was my safety net. That was where my sponsorship was quite stable. My work routine was stable because that time my kids had joined me. So it allowed me to do all sorts. But again, I was targeting progression. I was leveraging. I was building experience and exposure. What support work really taught me was the fact that beyond the physical support of going in and going out, psychological and emotional support, when you're looking after one person, when you are there for the longest, it's an all-rounder experience. It's a broader experience and you're on your own. It's unlike the care home. Again, it's unlike domiciliary where you do 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes. This is being there for longer. This is dealing with a lot of things from medication to personal care to managing other areas of their life, doing their finances, running the household specifically. However, also you are supported by a team. And honestly, that taught me a lot and that shaped the way I view care. This was the third experience that I now already had. And I was like, oh God, if I ever had a doubt to say was a future in care, I was now beginning to see light. I was now beginning to see where I could go, the options that I had if I wanted to progress in care. Partly the reason why I'm mentioning all that is because a lot of people do ask me. I know I shared my previous experiences to say, well, I started off in engineering, and a lot of people do ask me, Flo, have you got any plans to go back to engineering? After having experienced all of this, I think I want to explore care more. I think there is options. There is room for growth. There is room for expansion because of the exposure that I had. So these are the kind of work settings that will teach you emotional intelligence, patience, communication, documentation, escalation, because everyone is relying on you and you are always alert and you are always thorough with your documentation because people do follow up on these things. So I could see how I was growing. I could see how even the way I viewed like risk assessments, care plans, and what that meant. I could see a change. I could see growth in the way that I was doing that. And I could see also a bit of confidence in the way that I worked, in the way that I handled everything. I could see a lot of like calmness, even when things were going otherwise. I could see I was now starting to handle it better. And guys, I can never talk about my time doing support work beyond the team that I came across there. I think that's when I started to view care work as actually a proper job. For once, I felt I kept shrinking and being apologetic. And it was in that place where the team there kept telling me, this is not just a job, because the person we are supporting relies so much on us being here, us being present. Our commitment to her comes first. For the first time, that was the first care setting where actually I was told on my first day that in this house, our commitment to the person we support comes first. It made me think long and hard about whether or not I was committed. The reason why I'm emphasizing on that is because we always talk about the 6 C's of care. Do we actually understand the meaning? Of course, everybody will say, I'm caring, I'm committed, I'm courageous, I'm compassionate, I'm a good communicator. But it is when you're exposed to these care settings, it is when you have got so much responsibility, when everything relies on you so much that you begin to reflect on these 6 C's of care, when you begin really to live them and to implement them and weave them in your day-to-day ways of working. And I thank that experience again, because this is why I talk so much about exposure and experience. It builds you up, molds you into the carer that you want to be, the support worker that you want to be. And it's when you have that much exposure that even when you go into certain settings like the NHS, that you carry yourself with so much professionalism, confidence, without being arrogant, humble professionalism, humble expertise, humble confidence, I must say. The biggest breakthrough in strategy that I was talking about came when I joined the NHS Bank. I've shared a little bit of this, but joining NHS Bank was a strategy. It wasn't just joining for the sake of joining. I had tried applying, and I know a lot of people do apply. They want to go into the NHS. I went through that and I wasn't finding success until one time I came across a recruitment event that was going on. It was a bank recruitment event. I remember talking about it with colleagues, but then when people tell you that, what would I do on bank? And I'll share with you shortly how important and life-changing that was. I didn't look at it as a temporary job. I didn't look at how am I going to juggle it, because that time I had left the agency, but I was still doing support work and still with the domiciliary company, my safety net, my sponsors that time. But I thought I'll try bank. And it was the boldness, it was the courage to say, I'll try it, I'll add it onto my portfolio and see how it goes. What came after that story, that's how I broke into the NHS. So I went to this event. It was a whole beautiful experience. I've shared that in a video. If you haven't watched that video, please do go. I've got a whole playlist of NHS and care opportunities. Go and watch that video of how everything went, because I don't want to take much time in this video talking about the bank event. However, it's the exposure that I got by joining NHS Bank, because when you're on bank, you get to pick your own shifts, you get to experience different wards, different care settings. It was the first time being in the UK that I worked in the acute. A marvelous, beautiful experience. Everything that happens there is so fast, it's so thorough, it's so structured. Also, part and parcel of the things that I learned there, and I attribute a lot on my journey, is the level of documentation and teamwork there. The level of hierarchy and way in which you can escalate things. It was just marvelous. It emboldened, whatever that I have always believed about the care industry, to say there is opportunities. And also it's when you begin to see the multidisciplinary teams that you work with, you get to experience therapy teams that you work with, you experience a lot. And then that's when your view of the industry widens. I got to experience a wider view of the care industry to say, right, actually, I could become that. Actually, I can do that. And you're seeing those people firsthand. You're seeing the contributions that they make to the wider society, to the people that we serve. And you go like, oh, I could pursue that. I could really become that. I fancy that. And again, I think my imagination and my way of dreaming when it comes to career really got even bigger and bigger. And that's when I decided I was going to try and apply into the NHS. It's not easy. There were times when I would doubt myself. There were times when I go like, but I don't have much experience in this. I don't have much this and that. I've spoken so much about it in my posts on Facebook, and I'm also sharing and helping mentor fellow migrants who want to break into the care industry and they don't know how to. Or if you've been applying for a long time and with no success, please do join our Facebook subscription. You can gain access to us. We'll organize a one-to-one support session where we're going through all of the whole application process, coming up with a strong supporting statement and how you can leverage on opportunities in that session, because it's not as difficult as it looks. Like, I love strategies. It's all about implementing strategies. It's all about knowing what to put in there to strengthen your position as an applicant. And so if you're watching this video and you're wanting to go into the NHS and you need our support, do go on Facebook. Of course, do follow and like our content there, and also do subscribe, and then we will book you a slot to support you to review that CV, review that personal statement in our subscription hub. And also, we have added something new in our subscription hub. We are now starting to share jobs and opportunities with visa sponsorship, of course. So please make your way there. Don't miss out on opportunities. Don't struggle alone when we can actually support you. So here is one thing that most carers, migrant carers mostly, do not understand. The importance of exposure. Exposure is very key. Exposure, building experience, being exposed to so many systems, so many care setups is very key, especially if you're looking into then expanding in career growth. It gives you a portfolio, a wealth of experience, because there's a lot that is involved in care. What it gave me was the confidence now to go on and apply on a permanent basis, on a sponsored role with the NHS. If you had asked me in my first year in the UK to say, would you see yourself working in the NHS? I would have said no. I would have found it overwhelming. I would have found it even scary. I would have been scared to even fill in the whole application, let alone go into an interview. Partly it's because I've been there before, whereby back home I stayed in one job for more than 10 years. What that does is you've got no experience of going for interviews. No, you don't even get to update your CV, or you become so rusty, and now that can translate into fear when an opportunity presents itself, when a promotion presents itself. You're not ready because you haven't been exposed to a lot of things. Now, if you were to ask me if I'm aiming for growth, for progression, I even understand the next step that I want to take. I even understand and know that if I'm going to take a next step in my career, in my progression, I know how to do it. I've got the courage and I've got the plan for it already. And also, we are sharing in our mentorship program, like I've said, variety through sharing, through speaking to other people. I've come to realize that actually there are opportunities for growth. Even if you are in domiciliary, there is opportunities for career progression. You're in care homes, you are in support work, you are anywhere, you are in the NHS, there is actually plenty of opportunities. But it took me really trying out all these things, being exposed in building experience in all these things. So if you're watching this and you're a carer and you're wanting progression, start to become bold and daring. And I think in my next video, I'm going to talk about how I balanced all that with my own personal life, raising children in the diaspora, because we are not just here to work. We are also here to lay foundations and build up our families. We are a young family. And it was when I started working in care, when I came to the UK, that I heard of the word work-life balance. And we're going to be talking about that, I think, in my next video. So all the more reasons why, if you are looking to see how you will juggle all of this alongside family and raising children, do subscribe, stay on this platform, because we're going to be exploring all of that. Also, if you are wanting to know what my next step and everything else that I'm working on to complement that, and also to be an exact fit for the career progression pathway I'm choosing, then this is the place to be. Do subscribe so that you don't miss out on all of that. You don't miss out on the template that I'm actually using for my career progression and growth in the UK. In all of this, there is a big lesson that I've learned, that being in the diaspora and being a caregiver is not just about working hard. It's not just about being there all the time. It's about having a strategy, having a plan in place. It's all about being deliberate about the experience that you want to build, and also how that would complement the next steps that you can take in your career progression pathway. So bear in mind, hard work alone is not what will lead you to succeed. And as you're doing all of this, work hard, try to know as much as you can, build experience and exposure for the next step.